Hi, my name is Jack, and welcome to my Stevenson Center podcast. Like I said, my name is Jack. I am from Champaign, Illinois. Um, I got my bachelor's degree in history with a minor in anthropology from Eastern Illinois University, and I graduated in 2017 from there. I am in the Stevenson Center Applied Community and Economic Development program, and anthropology is my field of study. So today I really just kind of want to go through my professional practice and kind of talk about what I do there, how I ended up at the Stevenson Center, what really drove me to wanting to do community development work. And then I really want to focus on my AmeriCorps experience because that really formed a lot of what I want to do and gave me more focus on what specific topics within community development I want to work on, and even just showed me a lot of things that I may or may not have known I was going to like, and I ended up liking and really being into, like finding things that I loved. Okay, so after my undergrad in July of 2017, so about a month after I graduated, I decided to do a field school, which is basically a study abroad program for anthropology with Utah State University, and we were in Peru. And so there we did our own separate projects, but also started some projects for other professors around the use of medicinal plants and knowledge of medicinal plants. But we also worked with a group of internally displaced peoples. And these people were in this settlement called El Milagro that before we got there in the beginning of 2017, Peru was hit with devastating flooding. And so all of their houses were pretty much destroyed because they're made of adobe and not really wood fire or fire hardened bricks. So their houses were swept away. So we were doing a lot of work to just help rebuild this community. And we were looking for better ways to allocate the money that we had fundraised before coming to the country. And so what we decided on was to bring in a master craftsman to just enhance the skills of the people who were already making crafts and selling them in small markets. So with this master class, they were taught how to just improve their craft, or improve their already well-designed craft, and then eventually they were in a market for about 2 to 3 weeks where they were able to sell these crafts. And this is kind of what made me want to do work that had some type of impact on someone, no matter how big or small that impact would be. I just wanted to have some type of career that had an impact. So after that, I started looking into applied anthropology programs because I knew that anthropology was something I wanted to do, but I necessarily didn't want to do academic anthropology or doing a ton of research to really produce papers or research and whatnot, because I really wanted to do field work or work in an applied setting. So I started to look into these programs and I found the Stevenson Center. I eventually had a meeting at the Stevenson Center where I was told that AmeriCorps Peace Corps was one of the requirements to get into the Stevenson Center. So I had heard of these two programs, but I hadn't really looked into either of them. So the Stevenson Center was what really brought me to AmeriCorps. And so AmeriCorps is going to be the main topic that I want to speak about, but I also should mention that I am in my professional practice. I am at the City of Bloomington Township, and they are a general welfare office or a general assistance office, and they provide grants every month to low-income peoples. And so this is basically to help them with groceries, transportation, basically basic needs to establish a firm foundation for them. And so one of the requirements of this program is workfare. And this may be working at, let's say, the Habitat for Humanity Restore and just working at the in the store, stocking shelves, whatnot. But a part of this is also two classes, and one is the Skills to Succeed class and the Wellness Lifestyle class. The Wellness Lifestyle class is my main focus for my work. And so what I am doing is taking all the things that have really been covered in this class in the however many years it's been offered and developing all those topics into a structured curriculum so the class can be implemented and the same topics can be covered on a yearly basis. And with this curriculum also comes a manual. So whoever takes over after me will be able to implement the class. And so my typical day kind of looks like working on this curriculum and the curriculum manual. I'll have to go to the wellness classes or the Skills to Succeed class, and those are held outside of the township office. So I get to leave the office every now and then. And then I basically help out where I can in the office. I've recently started to work more at the front desk, taking phone calls, answering people's questions, and doing orientation questionnaires for people who may be new clients. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about my AmeriCorps experience. And I really want to preface everything with that I had a really great experience. I had great projects, great project sponsors, and awesome teams. And I know that people don't always have that experience in my program. And I know people who did not have that experience in my program. So the program I did was AmeriCorps National Civilian Community Corps, or NCCC for short. And so this is a national team-based program where you do various projects throughout your 10 months of service. And so with it being team-based, you live and work with the same people, and depending on your region, it varies how you go throughout the program. So in my region, the Southwest region, I did 3 separate projects and I switched teams every round. So my first project was in El Paso, Texas, where I worked with the El Pasoans Fighting Hunger Food Bank. And so we were there to sort through all of the excess product they had brought in during this year. And so a lot of our days were at the food bank sorting this product, and then we were also working at mobile food pantries at least once a week, where those were pantries in a community center at somewhere in El Paso, and you got to meet the people you were serving. They would go down a line and pick out the foods that they wanted. There were obviously certain quantities of things they could take or not take, but it was cool because you got to meet the people you were serving. And then they also were starting a farm that would eventually provide produce to the food bank. And because that was where we lived, or the farm was on the property in which we lived, we also worked the farm at least once a week. So my next project was in San Antonio, Texas, working with Habitat for Humanity. And we were really involved with every aspect of construction, from chalking the floor plan lines on the foundation to shingling roofs. And so our typical day, we were on the work site, and this may have been the main construction site or a rehab house, which were homes that Habitat was forced to buy back, but then they would flip and just replace any damaged things, basically do all the work to bring it back to as new as possible, and then be able to sell it at a lower price than the normal Habitat homes. And so we really got to see every aspect of construction there. And my third project was with the Columbia Center for Urban Agriculture in Columbia, Missouri. This was an urban farm, and that had been operating for about 10 years. And it was kind of the reverse of the El Paso project, where we spent most of our time on this urban farm doing every aspect of farming, and then working once or twice a week at the food pantry or the food bank that this urban farm provided produce to. Okay, so now I'm going to get into a lot of details about my experience, from rewarding moments or proudest moments that I had, challenges, how you cope with them, the people you met, my expectations versus my experience, and the lessons I did learn from AmeriCorps. So my rewarding experiences always had to do with any aspect of the project that allowed for you to meet or interact with the people who benefited from your service. So in El Paso, like I mentioned, we worked these mobile pantries. And so those were really rewarding because, again, you got to meet people, talk to them about how their day is going. It doesn't necessarily have to be why they're going to a mobile food pantry, but just interacting with these people and seeing how happy the work you're doing made them. And so in San Antonio, part of Habitat for Humanity as a whole is sweat equity, and that's working beside the families that will eventually live in the homes that you are currently building. And so that was great to meet the people, but with that, another aspect is the dedication day. And that's a day where all the homes may not be finished yet, but they're being dedicated, and the families are really kind of honored during that day. So that day is a long day where a bunch of leadership from Habitat for Humanity shows up. People cook a bunch of food. The families provide all the food for the day, but then you have to go back to work. So it's really kind of hard to do construction when you ate for 2 hours. But it was a great day. But the most rewarding aspect of San Antonio, and probably my AmeriCorps experiences overall, was a day. It was at Habitat, and it was towards the end of the workday where I was looking past the construction fence that had been recently moved up to allow families to move into these completed homes. And what I saw at the end of the block was kids playing in the areas around the homes or the street or yard of the homes that we had first worked on when we got into San Antonio. And that really put into perspective the work you were doing and how important that is to the families you're serving. And in San Antonio, we completed 12 homes in the 13 weeks we were there. So we were involved in the construction of 12 homes during our time there. And in Colombia, my most rewarding experience was similar to El Paso, and it's working in the food pantries and seeing the people you serve by just interacting with them throughout the pantry, and then also seeing the produce that we had harvested the day before or even earlier in the day on the shelves at the pantry. So with this program, there are many challenges, and they tend to be the length of the program, being with many of the same people all day, every day for 10 months. So with that, like living the people you work with can become tricky. It can lead to more tense situations than needed. And even just going back to campus is hard once you've been out in the field. And how you cope with those things are basically finding things that you enjoy and doing them often. If it's walking and listening to a podcast, do that. I was lucky to have pretty good teams for each of my projects, but I was never afraid to take time for myself. And then I think a big part of this is keeping in contact with people outside of AmeriCorps so you can talk about things that are not AmeriCorps. Also, use your days off, and you get 5 days, so use them and use them strategically. So I think another important aspect is that you get out what you put in. So if you have a good attitude and are willing to work through the tough days, make it work with someone you may not get along with outside of work, and sit through all the administrative things that are required by the program, you will have a great experience. Now I want to talk about the people I met. You really do meet truly great people, and a lot of these people I'm still friends with 2 years later. I met my girlfriend, and I keep in touch with most of the people I was closest to. And for the most part, you meet people who are there for all the right reasons. People want to serve those who are less fortunate than they are, while learning a ton of new skills, having once in a lifetime experiences, and seeing parts of the country they really haven't seen before. And I met people from all over the country who have different experiences than mine, and these experiences have shaped who they are and how they think. And those were like all my teammates, but also my sponsors. And they were great too. They were super knowledgeable in their area, and were fun to hang out with and talk to throughout the day. In Colombia, my sponsors were especially great. They were good people who are knowledgeable and just really enjoyed doing what they do. And so, my experience compared to my expectations, my experience was really shaped by the ads and what I had read about Anthropology. I think the program paints a picture of the best experience you can have, and they appeal to the impact you can make. What they don't show necessarily is that each campus has its own culture, and your team's experience will be different from other teams' experience. They don't show the stressors that come with the experience. They show rugged projects like trail building, forest fire management, or disaster relief. I didn't expect to be in cities for all these projects. I had some expectation to do one of these rugged projects, but I wouldn't trade the experience that I had for anything, and my truly great experience. So finally, one of the best things about AmeriCorps and NCCC are the things that you can learn. I learned how to be a better leader, teammate, and a better person as a whole. You can learn things about yourself that you would not in your daily life before AmeriCorps. So I learned that I really like agriculture from my project in Colombia. I learned that using urban agriculture and agricultural education to combat food insecurity was something that I had a great interest in. And you also learn a lot about the places and people you serve. And depending on your project, you learn various hard skills. So I learned how to farm by hand, how to properly plant, harvest, and clean produce, how to identify plants and produce. I learned how to properly balance the chemicals in the soil so plants can prosper better. And then in San Antonio, I learned various aspects of construction, like how to read floor plans, chalk line a foundation with those floor plans, how to frame a house, how to install flooring, how to install siding, how to shingle a roof, etc. So really, AmeriCorps is a experience that teaches you a lot. Teaches a lot of hard skills and teaches a lot about yourself. I truly had a great experience, and I wouldn't trade that for the world.